Greetings, welcome to Extra Hours, part of the OfficeHours.global network. Find out more, OfficeHours.global, and you can see what we're up to. It's mostly a daily show that's been going since March 2020 at 7 a.m. Pacific, but we do this one at night because it's a convenient time slot for a few of us, particularly me in Australia. This is quite comfortable 11:30 a.m. for me in the future, and so it's much more comfortable than the typical 1:30 a.m. That the time slot is of the Daily Show. So this show, this particular episode is a little bit different in that, or Extra Hours is a little bit different in that we might wax on a little bit more on the questions. We may not get to every question, and wax on, wax off, and so that's how it comes to be. Also, I get the privilege of personally inviting the panelists, and so we have assembled a crack squad of media creation professionals and event professionals from all over the states, it would seem. I think I haven't managed to get too many countries, but that's what it is. Starting off with who will be reading our questions tonight up in Seattle, Washington, is Guy Cochran. Hello, Guy.
Hello, hello. Greetings from just north of Seattle, Marysville, Washington today.
Nice. Good to have you here. It's going to be a fun night. We've already got some good questions. I wanted to say hello to everyone in the chat. And Guy, can you tell folk about how we're streaming the back end? Like just a little overview of how we're doing the show and that they can watch along.
Yeah, this one in particular, we want people to see the back end of what's going on. So a couple people in office hours over the last few months have put together this show in the Mac side of an app called Mimo Live. So Mimo Live is using a dual screen layout, and I'm using the machine's actually here. We call it the cloud, but it's really just this Mac studio that's running this show is right here. And so I just hooked a couple NDI, HDMI to NDI adapters, and then I fed them into a Zoom room. And so that one Zoom room comes into after hours, and it's actually displaying 3 displays. So it's got these 2 plus another screen scrape of the Mukana interface. I couldn't figure out what to put on the third one, but in the future, we'll figure something else out to put inside of there. But yeah, that's basically just it. Alexander's our TD today, and he's cutting the show. And he's up in Canada, but he's controlling this computer. I could see what he's doing down here, but it's just this $2,000 base level Mac Studio that's doing a 4K output with Zoom is the integration. So Zoom's pulling in our feeds into Mimo Live, and then these super sources, as you call them, or picture-in-a-picture MEs, whatever you want to call them, are being built in Mimo Live and pushed out to YouTube.
Nice. Thank you. Good explanation. Continuing our introduction around the panel, up in Raleigh, North Carolina. Is that right? You're in Raleigh? Muddy Sheagle. How are you, sir?
I am. Yeah, it's good to be here, and it's a treat. I've got after hours on the other screen, so I can see that too. I'm interested, and Guy, you've confirmed what we've always heard. The cloud is really just a computer in someone else's house. So in this case, it's your house. But yeah, a real treat to be here, and this feels like a very esteemed panel to be part of. I feel like the rookie among this group, but I'll do my best to hold my own. So,
not at all, not at all. I think the thing with the cloud is that I'm sure, Guy, that there are data centers around that have less bandwidth than you do at your house.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably. Seriously, there would be data centers that run on a 1 gig connection, and here you have a 10 gig connection.
10 gig is nice, I got to tell you. But it only comes down to like 7,000 or 8,000 because of the protection that's on that layer. But if I skip that past that and I go direct out, then it's a full 9,900 something. But it really is like 6,000 to 8,000 on a typical day.
Yeah, I mean that's dial-up speed, really.
Yeah,
that's pretty sad. Off in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma is City. Tucker Dragoo. Well, Oklahoma City.
Yep.
Okay, there you go. Hello, Tucker.
Hello. It's great to see you. And sometimes it's not about the total data, but how many packets and how quickly you can get those packets through. So super nice to have that.
I think he's got that in spades as well, right?
That's what I'm saying.
When you do it, Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, you may not get
0.9
the
of a
full 10 gig, but
millis.
your
Yeah,
packet
yeah,
throughput's awesome.
it's pretty crazy.
0.9 of a millisecond, I think you said, to Google. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
ping was 0.9.
That's
Pretty
wild.
crazy.
All right, we're just going to stop the show because I just think we're just gonna sit and feel bad about our bandwidth that we have.
Actually, David Brady once let me download some is it CI media from
Just some
Sony.
media via Aspera, so it's accelerated.
So,
but yeah,
so when I hit that Aspera thing, it sucks it just goes full throttle and it just. I mean, you can almost feel the blinds just suck in. It was so much.
Just
It
download
full
internet.
throttle. Yeah, it. I don't know what they do over there, but something just opens the thing wide open and sucks down every last bit.
It's very cool. We heard his dulcet tones from New York City, staying up late with us. It's David Brady.
that's
Hello,
right.
David.
Yes. Good evening, and it is good to see everybody. Good to see all the blue backgrounds too.
That's right.
a key
we're
key
matching.
point.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, the Aspera does. I forget the magic that it does, but I do know that one time early in our usage of it at work, there was a producer staying late night. She plugged in like multiple computers and took down an entire segment of our network because she plugged it into the phones and stuff. It was pretty horrible.
Plugged it into the phones. Is that when
Yeah,
you
she
pick up
used
the phone and
no, they were IP
disconnected it?
phones. She just plugged computers everywhere she could and launched the thing on everything. And I don't think we capped it, so it flooded the network and took down segments.
David, just remind people what keeps you busy during your working days.
Well, we're returned to office. Work at a major media company here in New York. We do in-house production for town halls, etc., stuff like that, media tours. And I'm kind of the technologist of the group. I'm always looking for the latest and greatest thing.
You mess around with Zoom a fair bit too, right? You like
Yeah.
in,
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah.
different ways. Yeah.
Yep. I
Yeah,
think our Zoom room count is upwards of 600 worldwide. We're slowly rolling more of those into, or trying to get management to bite on the Pro AV line of Zoom rooms and using them in different ways.
Very cool. All right, I'm teasing people that are watching with questions that you could ask. To complete the panel, Jeffrey Powers. Hello, sir. Fresh back from Europe. Is that right?
Yeah, fresh back from Dublin, Ireland. I went to
Nice.
we went to see the big NFL game at Cook Stadium. Yeah, that's what it was called. And it was a lot of fun. It was a great time, and I got to see a lot of cool. One thing I geeked out on the AV stuff, and we went to a rugby match, and I watched how I showed Guy this. I watched how they put together a low end production with these. There were like two like Canon cameras that were sitting on a speaker pole, and then the speaker pole was attached to another speaker pole because that one speaker pole had to turn. That was their makeshift PTZ camera that they used to follow the ball on the field, and it was just amazing to watch that type of stuff.
Nice. Very cool. Did you go and inspect the Belfast method? Is that part of the tour?
I would have loved to, but
Yeah.
it was all last minute. I mean, I literally got the call like 7 days prior, and then we set everything up. And I looked and I was like, okay, it might have been about an hour and a half to 2 hour train ride. Probably wasn't gonna work out for me, but we got to find out about a lot of sports tech and health tech that Ireland has, and I hope I'm gonna be back there for more interesting companies that are coming through Ireland for any type of tech, whether it be sports tech or communication, AI, or whatever.
Very cool. All right. Well, we've set the tone. There's a few things that we can talk about. We've got a couple of questions there. Guy, what's the first one?
First one's coming in from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. And Roscoe asks, Office Hours had a lot going on in education during COVID. Where is remote learning today, and can we still play a role in flipping the classroom, developing new workflows, or immersive/interactive curriculum?
Yeah, Roscoe, you're always asking good questions. I mean, it's one of the things that I am pushing a little bit. There's a thing I'm involved with a bit now is some software that we use particularly for in-person events. It's called Events Air, and it has been used as a registration tool. It's like particularly in person, but registration, and then even hotel booking, and then the event itself, and then that has apps connected to it for on-site apps. When COVID hit, they very quickly spun up a virtual aspect to it so that they could have people join the events through virtual, and that has actually continued. And what's been interesting as I've been meeting more and more users that use this platform is the idea of hybrid, right? Which is a bit of a cuss word around office hours. But the idea, we're often talking about, why is hybrid so bad? It's essentially because it's two different events at the same time, but we never consider it that way. It's like, oh, just turn the camera on and live stream it, and now you've made a hybrid event. It's never like that, and it always feels like the little kids at the Christmas table or the Thanksgiving table is like, there they are off in the little kiddie table. It's the people that are online. But what we are seeing is different methods of reusing the same content from an in-person event, and then adding that to be to on demand, for example, afterwards, not making it live, but make it on demand afterwards. Now, the ideal, I think, is then to do, here's content that was all created at an in-person event, make that available for a couple of weeks, and then give people an opportunity to come together online and ask questions and have all the speakers that spoke, have them available to answer questions. Of course, all the people that were in person could also attend the online event. And so I really love that, because ultimately an online event is an inclusive event. And my thinking is that an in-person event starts to become an exclusive event. Not in a bad way. I mean that it's designed specifically for a certain number of people. And now your venue selection is easier. You've got that, the way that you're doing that in-person event is much easier. But your whole strategy is that you have an inclusive event that brings everyone in, and then you can have multiple exclusive events that are in person. And I think that's the best of both worlds. In my mind, that's a hybrid approach, which is not having them all at the same time. Muddy?
Yeah, and one of the things I remain grateful for about one of the things that COVID really forced was more of an adoption to remote connections, and how do we reach people in a virtual way, and that is something that has persisted. Two of the I wish I could say trends. I don't know that they're trends, but two of the ways I have seen kind of adult and professional education really be leveled up by harnessing the technology we're using. One is by through Zoom, being able to create these small discussions, breakout room discussions is really what I'm talking about, in events. So many, I just have such a low tolerance for poorly run meetings that, I was watching, my wife on a real estate webinar, and it's like, nobody's on camera. Everyone's just listening in the background. And in contrast, I'm working with a team that's creating a real estate mastermind event. And after the keynote presentation, we're all going into breakout rooms across, multiple Zoom meeting, hundreds of people, to now have these small group discussions about what resonated with them about AI and real estate. And when I talk with the panel and client team about this, they're like, wow, this is completely amazing. This is unlike any event out there right now. And that's great that we get to push that edge, because when you are engaged and able to share how this impacts you, you're so much more invested in the content and you have so much more opportunity to apply what you're learning. It's not this passive lean back experience. And the other way that I've seen this is actually something I heard, Alex Lindsay talk about early on, is this idea of a digital first event. And I'm glad to say I have been to a few of them in the past year where it is a virtual studio and on-site guests, but they're not in the same room. The virtual studio is dedicated so that the presenters are presenting to camera, and then there is another room on site, on-prem, where you have essentially a watch party, a group of people in person that are watching together and having some of the benefits of that in person, but also everyone is still front row because the presenters are speaking to the camera. So those are just two examples of things I've seen that are working really well as it relates to kind of professional education.
Yeah, totally agree. And it maximizes on the difference, that it actually is a positive, a strong positive and a benefit, and better to meet online because it's focusing on the strengths. Jeffrey?
Yeah, we've seen that in many different situations like CES or NAB, where it's basically an overflow room, but there's also been points where people can get together and they can discuss what's being said, because you don't need to be at the keynote or whatever the main session. So having that ability to talk it out is great. Going to the question at hand, and I'm going to go towards the everyday use of it, not just the virtual conferences and everything. I'm actually going into the classroom. I think the biggest problem is that the average person will forget how to use Zoom, because now they're being asked to go back to the classroom. Now they're going through their regular schedule, and they want to have that interaction because they were at COVID and they were all isolated during COVID, and they just don't want to feel that way again. But we talk about hybrid, but I always thought that we should have a more of a hybrid approach when it comes to teaching. So let's say Monday through Thursday, they're actually in a physical classroom. But then on Friday, they're on a Zoom call for a couple hours. That way, they're keeping their computers up to date. They're remembering how to do all this. The new protocols can be put into place. So when things like I'm in the Midwest, so if we have a snow day, then they can get on their computers without a problem and continue the education from there, and then go back to the regular classroom at the end of it. So I would love to see that we try to keep their toes dipped in that water, but still be able to go through life, because we still need to interact with each other outside of a computer screen.
Absolutely. And I think to bring it back to education specifically, I think that AI is really messing with that, in that I think anytime we're bringing people together to consume content in a room together, arguably is a waste of time, unless it's an entertainment-based thing. So theatre and even a movie-going experience, where it's millions of dollars of entertainment specifically, doing that, or even a concert in some degree. But I think for education, sitting in a room with a bunch of people, listening to content in real time, it's like, I would prefer to be able to listen to this in 1.5 times, and save. And I want to be able to pause and go back. And so to be able to do that, I think and this is what I'm saying to clients now about conferences, what is the key reason you want to bring people together? And they always say to network, to connect with each other, to compare notes, to ask questions, look at case studies, right? Okay, and then what percentage of your event do you spend doing that? It's 10%. 90% of it is we're just throwing content at people. And so what if you were to shift, to flip that? And so I think about education in a similar way. And the reason I said about AI is because AI is making it really easy to conform content into a way that you would like to consume it. Make it smaller, elaborate on this, make a little video, whatever it is. It's like, it's changed education. And so now for kids, and I've got 3 kids in school, the amount of time they just spend watching YouTube and think like that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that which is what they have to do, the teachers have to do to try to keep up with this. It's like throwing education and entertainment in together. But the idea that they could do some of that to time shift that, and then when they do come together, to Jeffrey's point, where they're able to come together, do the things that is not about consuming content, but it's about debating and questioning and that sort of thing. That's really the idea on that. Tucker, you want to add something?
I was gonna just go along with you on that. On the it's all about processing the content, right? Processing and digging and when you that I was just gonna reiterate that on what you were saying.
Thanks, Tucker. Thanks for the backup. All right, next question.
Next one's coming in from Zach Jeffers in Spokane, Washington, and he asks, we've all gotten better without Zoom backgrounds and lighting, but has the expectation of presentations been elevated or reverted? I've seen many TV and web shows with remote guests still with cameras up noses and more.
Tucker?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It used to really bother me, and it still bothers me to a point, but it goes along with the same thing that I think leads to that level of expectation being what's put forward with regards to onboarding those talent and presenting that to the world. I think that it's the same thing that you see when you see in a sporting broadcast where they're obviously on a wireless camera and they run it until the signal fades. They show the audience the signal fading. They know from going through it where that's going to happen, but they still show it to the audience. And it's just one of those kind of peeks behind the curtain of like, hey, heads up, this is a fragile thing we're doing that is really cool for you. We're going to run it until it's gone. And I think that's exactly what you see with those. We don't want to put more effort into this piece because they don't necessarily want to support it. And yeah, it's just part of how broadcast seems to handle it.
David?
Well, I'll speak from the broadcast side of things. It depends on the angle or preparation that you have for these things. Our group does a lot of what used to be satellite media tours. Now there's Zoom-based media tours, and our producers will work with talent to make sure that they're at least framed right, they're well lit to the best of our ability. A lot of times it's talent that's distant and they might be on an iPad in a hotel somewhere. So, we got to work with what we have. Some of the other ones, though, where people are just dialing in from that up the nose shot, if there's no preparation and it's a news thing versus an entertainment piece, you got to just take what you get and not get upset.
Muddy?
I feel like there are kind of two camps. There's the camp of people that don't know, and there's the camp of people that don't care. And I'm not sure we can do a lot about that second half, but I continue to emphasize, I 100% believe the way you show up online establishes your credibility. So that is a phrase that I continue to use every chance I get. And if you are listening, you may be nodding along. And that's usually the reaction I get as well when I say that. People are like, yeah, you're right. And as a result, when you show up and you look good and you sound good, you immediately come in with more credibility, and people can, and like I talked about having low tolerance for poorly run meetings, I have the same idea for people who show up on camera and either haven't put in the effort. That's usually the case, folks that haven't put in the effort. And so we continue to lead by example and showcase and just kind of reiterate that. So that's my stance on it.
Yeah. David?
Yeah, I'll just circle back with one other personal experience that I had is coming into some of those meetings that we would do with this kind of look, kind of intimidated some of the talent or some of the executives that we had to do, and I've gotten pulled from events because they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm coming in with blazing both guns, and you overstepping that threshold or that boundary. So it's a dual-edged sword. You've got to be very careful, and recognize it when it's there.
Yeah, I think the analogy of it's like the clothes that you wear, that they would never show up to a studio in shorts and a t-shirt to go live on TV. They would be dressed up. And so I guess it's the equivalent, David, of the talent showing up in shorts and t-shirt, and you are in a three-piece suit as the crew. It's like something's wrong with this picture, and they feel it straight away. And this is ultimately the point, I think, Zach, is when we think about this, is that it's all about how you feel. It's how the people that are watching feel. It's not what they think. In some ways, it's also about how the talent feels and not what they think. And so if we've allowed it, I think and broadcast have probably been the worst at it, allowing, and for often good reasons, David, as you're saying. Sometimes it's last minute. It's what you get. They've thrown open their iPad or laptop, and this is what you get. But I think we're able to do this better, and when it is really good quality, particularly good quality audio, and it looks good, and we're at the right height, all of that makes the people that are watching feel better about that person. To Muddy's point, it's about you end up having more credibility in it. Jeffrey?
So I've been doing a little bit more interviews once again on my YouTube channel. So, and of course, when it comes to doing YouTube interviews, as David said, you get what you get, and then you have to deal with it from there. I just did an interview where the guy was in, I don't know if it was the company break room or something like that, and there was one point where somebody just walked up to him and said, "Hey, you dropped your pen." So he stopped in mid sentence and went and picked up the pen, and it was just like, well, that can, if this was live, that would have been something that could have really thrown off the interview. But the one thing that I always liked is a lot of these people have PR people, and those PR people also like to be there. And if you can explain to the PR people how, or their handlers, I guess you call them, how you need to see or what you'd like to see, they can also convey it in a message that the CEO or somebody like that would be able to understand. Because I've been in situations where we set everybody up like a day before and everything looked good, and then the day came on the show and for some reason they rearranged the room and everything was in new places, and it was crazy.
All right, next question.
Next one in from Zach Jeffers in Spokane, Washington, asking, as far as low latency interview solutions go, I'm still finding Zoom to be a competitive option, but some producers I've talked with still scoff and say, oh, they'll never use it. How do we approach limited production mindsets when they call the shots?
Tucker?
I've got a couple of thoughts. My first one is that I completely agree that as far as a low latency interview solution, Zoom is fantastic, along with, arguably Teams and some of the other solutions that are out there. The main thing when we're doing this kind of work is to empower the best conversation that we can, and the low latency abilities of Zoom, and again, other meeting solutions is really second to none. The place that I find, the only thing I find lacking is the lack of ability to do a double end record, or that's more challenging with Zoom than it is with some of the bespoke solutions. As far as how do we change the mindsets, usually with our company, we take the long game of what have you been using before? We're happy to continue to use that if you're comfortable with it, and then work on slowly making the shift. If that's an option that seems like the door's open to. I also use it as a pretty good filter for clients. So some clients that say we're going to use these solutions regardless, and we're not open to any other options. Sometimes it's a decent filter. So,
Guy?
Yeah, there was a video a while back with Aaron Parecki. I'll put it in the chat. It's this one here that's called Live with Epiphan via SRT, four friends and several pearls. So what these guys did in this test was they met inside of Zoom, so their real-time conversation was Zoom, but then they pulled SRT backend feeds and they cut it. So the backend was 2 seconds or so delayed for the person cutting it and the people watching. They didn't. Tucker's got one of those Epiphan pearls. I don't know if you could cut to that, but it's a hardware device. It cost about $2,000. So to answer the question, yeah, so if you could cut to Tucker, because he's got two of those. So, and I've been on a shoot with him where we had 19 that we had to rent some. So there's projects where you can get pretty involved with using SRT, but the difference is that you can get 8-bit color, 10-bit color, 422. You can go up to 25 megabit, even more, 4K, 60. So it depends on what they're looking for. Do they need the real-time nature, or can they throw it to somebody, let them hear it, and then pros will know that because they're used to satellite, they can deal with the delay, and then go ahead and keep talking. So they when they throw it to them, they can still pull it off and just wait for the delay, but they don't talk over each other, and they're very purposeful of the way that it flows. So it just depends on the action and how that is going to transpire. But the look is so beautiful. If you can show them the difference, like, hey, if you don't need the back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, then let's go SRT and let's go hardware, let's go HEVC. Because that's the other thing, is you can get this stuff to be with the good encoders like the Pearl. If you pay for the upgrade, you can get 4K, because out of the box it's not 4K, but you can get the license, and then you can do HEVC. So now all of a sudden you're at half the bandwidth. So now you can get out of places with a prettier picture than you could with Zoom, because Zoom's about 5 megabits. So imagine going 25 megabit, which would be the equivalent of 50 in H.264, but you're in H.265 with HEVC. So it just comes to a matter of how good do you want it to look, and do you have the resources to show them how good it could look? Because I mean, this should be a video. We should make a video that says, here's SRT, here's Zoom. Like, Zoom looks good in with a 1080p account if you can, go from 360p, which is out of the box, to 720, and then walk it all the way up to 1080. But then 4K SRT is a whole nother animal.
Yeah, I think that's a great point about the difference of people, of what they've experienced. And so if these producers have only experienced bad Zoom calls, then they would be saying, well, we don't want any of that. But I think it's a tool versus the artist. And so it's kind of like saying, well, I've seen an artist use those paintbrushes before and it was terrible. So I don't want any of this, because those paintbrushes are, you can't possibly get a good quality out of them. You get the right artist, doesn't matter what the paintbrushes are, they're going to look great, right? And so there is something there about, you may have only seen bad experiences in Zoom, but as professionals, we continue to use it and get a great result out of it. Can you trust us to actually get a really good result? What is it specifically that you are looking at? Is it quality of video, and what is it? What is it that makes you say otherwise? Particularly, Zach, one of the things that I have had early on, I had a client say, we must use Teams to do our event. And I thought about it long and hard, and I ended up saying, do you know what? If you want to use Teams, then you'll need to find someone else to do that for you. Because we have doubled down on our usage of Zoom. We know it really well. It's not even necessarily saying anything negative about Teams, although I could. But it's more the fact that this is the tool that we've chosen to master, and we have mastered it. We're getting great results out of it. And so if you want an event with all the outcomes that you want, then we would use Zoom. And in that particular case, they said, oh, actually, I think we probably can use Zoom. So it was just pushing back a little bit, because they really were like, no, it has to be Teams, has to be Teams. But pushing back a little bit. And of course, I had to be prepared to just lose the client. And that was my choice, to say that that we wanted to double down and be able to choose the tools. And I say to continue with the painters. You ask someone to come and paint your house. You're not telling them, now you must use these brushes. You have to use these rollers. Or I'm going to provide them all. Or, like you would never do that. Same with a plumber or whatever. You have to use this. It's like you use the tools. We're asking you to do the job. You come and do the job with the tools that you have mastered and that you're good at. It's great conversation. Muddy?
Yeah, we've got, okay, coming in. Thanks for that. Okay, we're hearing from Grant. Yeah, the right. So there's the delay with satellite, and you kind of learn to play around with it. The two things I'm hearing that I really like about this conversation and this question are, one, really understanding what we're trying to accomplish as the whole picture, right? What is the ultimate goal? Because the way I like, oftentimes I have people asking me about a tool. Hey, can we use this? And it's like, well, hang on a minute. What do we want to accomplish? And then what's the best tool to be able to do that with these other criteria? So understanding that, I think, is a great approach, but also thinking about what are the pieces that we're going to measure this against, right? So I hear Grant talking, and Guy and Tucker as well. Like, okay, latency. So that's one of the criteria we're going to use to evaluate. Video quality, bandwidth. That's another criteria. So having the systematic approach of the parts of the system that are important. And part of the reason I bring this up is actually I saw Andy Carluccio share an article on LinkedIn recently. This was specifically about custom AV for Zoom rooms. But what this article did, this was a white paper, and what this article did is really break down these different types of solutions across these 5 different metrics, right? So being able to pull in local signals, being able to manage those, being able to convert them, so it was just this systematic approach, and that allows you to basically compare solution against solution. So rather than just this, we've had bad Zoom calls. Okay, well, let's break down what are the components of that and compare it to other options. So I'm just really kind of recommending that and calling out the systematic approach that we're talking about, I think, is a really useful way to approach this.
Nice. Guy?
Yeah, a couple things. One, Zoom is going to be ramping up the data rate a little bit more in December. So we don't know exactly what it's going to hit, but right now it's about 5-6 megabit. We're going to see 60p that's already been formally announced. So we'll see that. And then maybe we'll see 4K or something higher resolution. But right now it's just more megabits. So we're going to have a sharper image. The other thing is, on a shoot last weekend, we had NDI bridge acting as the transport mechanism, which you can dial in the latency, and so that can be very fast, but it's a computer. So if you're out in the field, and I know Zach Jeffers, I've heard he does like motorsports off-road. So the other thing that we had was high vision backpacks, and these we rented them. They were $900 a day. We had 2 of them, and we had those cranked up to 16 megabit in HEVC, so that's the equivalent of 32. And did the interaction between NDI bridge, because it was a theater and Talon out in the field throwing back, but they knew that there was going to be a delay, and they just flopped back, and it was fine. Like the viewer, sure, there was a little delay, but the viewers understood what was happening. They were cool with it. So again, it just depends on how pretty you want that picture to be. And then in your case, how robust you want that cable and that connection and battery and all that hardware to be out in the field.
Good one. Well, and Vic tells us that these are the brushes that you need to get. Purdy are the brushes, apparently. So you heard it here first. If you're looking for, you're trying to guess between Zoom or Teams, Purdy brushes is what you need. You'll be fine. David, final word.
Okay, I'm just going to wrap it up with, again, from the traditional broadcaster mindset, change is slow and deliberate. It's not just rip and tear things out there. And this will go to one of the next question, another question down the line too. So,
yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I was surprised. I got to work on some broadcasts, some sports OB trucks, and so I was always super impressed. Going in the truck and you're just seeing the highest end gear you know, running it all, and you see how the systems work and how the teams work. But then every now and again, I'd just see like a black magic converter somewhere, or you know, it's like, and you just think, oh, it's not as high and lofty as you think sometimes, you know. Like, it's, yes, there is certain places where there's no compromise, and then there's some places where it's like, oh, actually, this cheap little adapter thing, whatever, is the best, you know, case for this, the best tool for this at the time. So yeah, I did enjoy doing some broadcasts there. Although there's lots of grumpy old guys in broadcast, and so so I couldn't hang around there too long. All right, next question.
Mike Muddy Schlegel in Raleigh, North Carolina, and here on the panel asks, has anyone had experience with the Elgato network dock? A fellow production expert has had nothing but trouble on his Mac Studio and warned that it should probably be in beta. Has anyone else had success or trouble?
Guy, I think you've got one at hand. Yeah.
It works great. I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe you should reach out to me, because mine's been perfectly fine. So I've used it with both companion and buttons, and depending on how, so when you plug it in, you could have it act in DHCP mode, or you can self-assign, or I let it DHCP, and then I did a reserved IP address on it. And I walked around to different areas of my network and I plugged it in here at this seat and ran stuff that's on a companion machine across the way, and then on another machine. So I've had it on like 5 different machines, and it's been great.
You just explain quickly what it is.
Yeah, it goes inside. So it looks like this. It's a little tiny adapter that basically converts Ethernet to USB-C, and it's power over Ethernet. So it supplies power to your Elgato Stream Deck, and I have the 32. I think it only works with certain models, but it doesn't work with the original ones because of the way that the USB gets power, but it does work with the second MK2, the second generation of the 16, and then the 32. And so what it does with Companion, at least, I didn't really use it with the Stream Deck out of the box. Oh, that's his issue. He needs to update it. So he needs to, step one, do install the Stream Deck software and install the update, and then go ahead and uninstall the Stream Deck software if you're not going to use it, and then use Companion. It should just pop up in the back end as a device when you scan your network.
There you go. Tucker?
Great thought, Guy. That's awesome. I love seeing that moment of like, that's it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So good. I was going to say, I have not used those, but my understanding is it's basically the same thing that's happening in the Stream Deck Studios. And we've been using them a lot with our cloud-based systems. And so we've got Companion running in AWS, and then we've got just a VPN tunnel, and we've been using them, and they've been rock solid. But that's a good call out on the update. And that's it.
Just a note to everyone. Let's just see what type of product we could ask Tucker that just has it at hand. He'd just be able to pull another product. Let's guess what's in arm's reach.
Carbonite code panel. How close is the Carbonite code panel? Let's see. Is he going to get it? There's the code.
That's awesome.
I've got another one.
Is that a 2-stripe?
No, single stripe, but it's a sports channel. iPod.
iPod.
Ooh,
Okay,
old
good.
school.
Good. David.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious how the network dock would affect performance on a Mac Studio, unless it's, that doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm not like trying to discredit it, but they're 2 independent devices, and unless it's flooding the network or something.
Marty?
Yeah, and my understanding is it's not that it's crashing the Mac Studio as much as he has tried everything on the Mac Studio to get it to work, and so much so to like completely reinstall the operating system, like to try and
And do you know if he's running Companion 4.1.1, the latest build of Companion? Because it does need the latest build, or at least 4 and above. You can't use the old version. So that
I expect he is, but this is great.
The other thing to look out for is if it's all on the same network segment, because I'm not sure if the discovery is going to traverse different segments if that's in play.
Yeah, and it's not that he hasn't gotten it working; it's that it hasn't been stable, right? So he's got it working, and then it's not working, and so he's just spent a lot of time troubleshooting, and yeah, so it's a little bit of a mystery, which is why I thought I'd bring it here to this group.
Fair enough. Sounds like the latest software is a good start, but yeah, it's possible that it already is on that. I wanted to shift gears for a moment, because I think that people may have missed that there was this OpenAI Dev Day week or so ago, which I found particularly fascinating because it was going into specifically people using OpenAI APIs and even ChatGPT specifically for development for dev work. And what I was kind of blown away by was that a demo that they did was this, which was talking specifically about one of the announcements they made was an SDK version of OpenAI, essentially like ChatGPT has an SDK. What that means specifically is that it could be built into an app, and then essentially the app can now change itself based on using OpenAI. So, but in this example, the thing that he said was how to control a Sony FR7 camera in Node, right? It's in Node.js essentially. So it goes off and finds how it all works, basically Visca over IP. It works all that out. And he did this live, and he said, okay, so build a little interface. And so he builds the interface, and then here it is, and had the preview coming in and up, down arrows, just simple, right? And it's controlling an FR7. It was like, great. He barely said anything about, specifically, how to do it, but just did that. There's this thing called auto context that is added in now, and he's actually shown in this demo the difference between using command line interface called codecs, and then this is ChatGPT, or using it in an IDE. Sorry, it's not ChatGPT. This is code, VS Code, and using ChatGPT within it. So it's as an IDE. Auto context is pulling in context of the code around what he wants it to do. But essentially all he said was, I want to use an Xbox controller for it. He didn't say anything about what, specifically what the controls would be. And he did that live as a live demo. And if I'm not getting it right here, it basically, it went and found out what the controls are for the Xbox controller, and then I might have jumped past it, but essentially it worked straight away, instantly, and it had the joystick of the Xbox controller controlling the FR7. So then the next step was, which is what was mind blowing to me, is from a office hours point of view, it was like the intersection of all these different areas, interest areas, right? Because firstly we're talking about OpenAI and AI for coding. Then we're talking about it interfacing with cameras, so a PTZ camera, the FR7. And then he says, now what if we were to control the lighting in the building? So then it was essentially a DMX controller that he wrote into it and said, turn the lights on. And so you can't, I think you might see it in a moment. No, this is the part where he got the Xbox controller working. It worked straight away, and the joystick worked in a single iteration of just saying, add an Xbox controller to this. Away it went. But the next part was lighting. So, and in between this, I'm basically giving you a blow by blow of this little demo, but you should definitely go and watch it, because the next thing, because of the SDK that he built into the app, he's able to talk to it and say, I want you to add lighting control to the app. So this was not using ChatGPT outside of it and then redeveloping and redeploying. It was changing the app live, making changes to it, and then now so you can see in the top of the frame all the moving fixtures all moved to light up the audience as part, and that was just the app that controlled it. And you can see in the code it was I can't remember what the little USB to DMX interface little thing it was, but that's what it went and learned what the controls were for that, and away it went. Tucker he was thinking about, but what channels was it using?
Well, exactly. Like that's my thought there, is that like that's probably a little bit of theater, just because like he would have had to give it like
something,
a whole lot more information as far as yeah, and because otherwise it's going to hit, it's just a value, and it's just going to say like, okay, cool, let's turn every value to 255, and those lights are going to do all sorts of random things, including probably turn all the way on. But yeah, that one feels like a touch of the, yeah.
It would be. I'd be interested in your thoughts on watching it, because so the thing that he added in the end was take a photo, but it was also tell me what the what you're seeing, and so straight away it was able to view, kind of ingest the live imagery that it had off of the FR7, and it said, I can see a bunch of people, sitting at a whatever. This was, he built out a credits, like a closing credits of all the people that were there, and just added that to the app. So anyway, kind of mind-blowing, the idea of being able to change the app within the app. It was really, really amazing, and just turning on voice, like having voice prompts within the app that you join. So that was that. The thing that I've been playing around with is Codex, and I did use Claude. Is it Claude Code? Is that what it's called? Something like that. And I played around a little bit, but I've just kind of doubled back down on ChatGPT, partly because of expense, right? Like I've just doubled down and used that, and I've been super happy. And eventually I've had to go to Pro now, so it's a couple $100 a month. It's not nothing, but the way that it's developing all these different projects for me now is really amazing. And the last one that I've been doing is getting it to create mock data, basically a mock event, so that I can use it as a demo for other services that connect to an event. And so the shift in my mind was actually when I was developing code and just writing PHP code, right? And so I do it in terminal and just a command line interface, give it access to certain files. It would make changes to the files, and then I would say, now I'd need to upload that to my server, and so I'd manually go and do that and work it out. Anyway, I had this thought one day: what if I have the server mounted as a WebDAV folder on my computer? I'll still have it make all the changes that are actually in a Dropbox folder, which means that I have versioning control, right? I've got whatever it is, a year of version controls on each one of those files. So that just means I can roll back super easily. But then I just tell it, when you've finished making changes, copy it to this WebDAV folder, which is just a web disk of the server, and now it's live, right? So now I make all these changes. When it's finished, it's already uploaded to the server for my testing, and I do the testing, and away it goes. So the final step, some of you will find this really interesting, and some will be bored out of your skull. And so then this last step was, well, if it can do that, then it can also execute commands like curl, and it can essentially do API calls to other services. And so now this idea of creating a mock event means that it can generate all the content as well as upload it and add it into a system. I just had to tell it what the API is. And so just before coming on this show, I was watching it live as looking at the event platform and seeing sessions populate with content from it. And I think it was a 36-minute process is what happened. And so it's interesting when we think of ChatGPT and where we're like almost instant and we're getting these responses, and whereas this had to think longer and create content and go and get images and things like that.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Grant, because when I was building that little SDI to OMT app and I was doing it starting in ChatGPT, one of the problems that I had was it would keep timing out because it didn't have like a repository to keep the code. And so it would time out and then I'd have to restart. And I got really frustrated after a few days. So I was explaining to Churig what was going on. He's like, dude, you gotta get Claude Code instead, do it in Claude Code. And then he said, get a PC and put a Ubuntu on that, and then you can actually store those files locally. So now it's stored in there and it references back locally on your machine. You control everything, and you have the PRD in there, and then you can have other agents and things that you really spec it out. And so it says like, hey, you use Supabase or use this database locally. And so it's really cool to see where this stuff's all going, because now I have Claude running on a little $400 B-Link, and it's just blowing my mind what it can do. It's like, and I did upgrade to the $100 a month plan because I ran out of tokens pretty quick too.
Yeah. I think what has changed, even it feels like in the last 6 months, is that it used to be that for coders, knowing the code was almost essential, because you would ask for it to make changes, and then you would look at it, and you'd say, no, that's not right. Like, that's not the right code to use there. Whereas I really think like the term vibe coding kind of has this kind of, oh, well, that'll be a great prototype. I don't think it's the case anymore. I really think that people are generating fully production ready applications, having no understanding of the code at all, and are able to run it at scale, and it feels like all these the different coding platforms are competing, and so what used to be, okay, now here's the next year's announcements, or in 2 years' time here's this new announcement. It feels like it's every couple of months. Here's the new version, and it's doing this now way better, and we're learning all the time, and so the advancement of it is kind of mind-blowing. So I encourage people, that particularly our kind of technical audience, even if you've never messed around with coding before, if you've got an idea of something you'd like to play with, now is an amazing time to be playing with this stuff. Blue Melnick, has been doing some amazing new tools. He just did a new one because he's Canadian, but he's studying to become an American citizen, and so he created this whole new. He took all of the questions. There's 120 questions that you need to know the answers for to, prove that you're good enough to be American, and so normally they're multiple choice systems online for helping you learn, but the actual interview is not multiple choice, and so he's created this whole voice-based app that it reads you the question and you talk back the answer, and it takes the context and works out whether you got the answer correct or not, and helps you go through it over some time to eventually practice all 120 questions, and it's awesome. And he doesn't. I mean, he plays down how smart he is. He's a very smart dude, but he doesn't really know code. And he doesn't need to. There was Replit. Is that what it's called? Replit is the there's an online hosting platform for websites and web applications that you just give plain language to, and it builds it all out for you. Hosts it, all of it. Incredible. Yeah. Anyway, that was quite a detour, but I wanted to show particularly that OpenAI Dev Day. It's worth watching. There's some super cool things in there. We still got another question or two. Next question.
Zach Jeffers, Spokane, Washington, asks, I still find production trucks using 1080i 60 workflows even when the target is the web. How will we ever move on?
David?
Again, I think that's just due to the history of the trucks hitting terrestrial broadcast initially. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm sorry if I'm using all these, dime a dozen chop phrases, etc. But it's easier to convert it once at the outbound thing than convert everything coming in and splitting it that way.
You are fitting the stereotypical old curmudgeon broadcast guy. Just interlace has worked well for many years.
Get off of my lawn.
There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, we're sort of in a similar place where the broadcast, TV broadcast is still interlaced, even though so many people now are just moving to online streaming of those, services.
Right. We'll actually produce some of our internal town halls on studios within our organization. They give us interlaced, and we have to convert it because otherwise everything's all stripy. So,
yeah. I worked on an event, a high scale corporate event, and they handed me 50i, and I was like, why are we doing 50i? And it's like, broadcast standard. I was like, we're going online. Like, what it's not going on TV, it's like, and so after upsetting a few old guys, we got there in the end, and we got 50p. It was nice. Jeffrey.
Question for David. Do you think that ATSC 3.0 is going to make that change for broadcast productions?
That I could not answer. That's a completely different group that's handling all of those conversions, etc. I'm not looking forward to losing my over-the-air TV, but once they sort all that stuff out, they'll figure it out, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm in a homestead that was built about 15 years ago, and when they built it, it's probably like 100 houses or so, and they were all smart. They were putting in fiber, and so everyone has fiber, but they did TV over fiber, and so there was no antennas anywhere. It's all right. It's empty, everyone. Everyone was worried that I just spilled. I was most worried that I just spilled everything. And so, no antennas anywhere. And so they just split, split off some bandwidth off of the fiber, and on the converter box it has a little RF out, and then RF goes off to the TVs and tune it in, away it goes. That fiber network has been recently sold off, and so I was like, oh, is this still going to stay? And so it's all still working. And then I got a letter in the mail, as you do. Got a letter in the mail saying, oh, so about your TV, it's very hard to maintain that system, and so we're going to be turning off that RF. And so I'm kind of at a point now where I'm like, I don't know that I'll bother. We already just have all the apps, all the TV channels here have their apps, and you can watch live TV on it. And so I'm sort of like, I don't know that I would get an antenna, but what does the curmudgeon say about having an antenna? You need to have an antenna.
Besides being a curmudgeon, I'm stingy. So, I just want my free TV.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, it does have I do have an RF distribution amplifier, and it's already cables are everywhere. So I do think, well, maybe I do just throw an antenna on it and plug it in, and then it will work. But there we go.
Still have an analog watch.
Yeah, that's just for status, though, right? You just want people to see how rich you are with your Rolex. All right. Next question.
Zach Jeffers at it again, Spokane, Washington, asking, anybody have solutions for somebody that wants to practice on becoming a replay operator? The best thing I can think of is building a demo vMix and control fed with sample feeds. Are there any available sports multicam sources?
Guy, you didn't know it? I thought you might have come up with something.
Well,
We've
you
talked
really
about
need
it, haven't
high
we?
frame rates to do this. The person to ask, though, is Omar Gadon. Over the weekend, he just showed us his vMix replay operation live on the show show floor. It was an MMA event, and he was the EIC, and he was showing us all the different stations. It was all going into an ATEM 2ME, but one of the stations was high frame rate vMix with the little what do you call it? X keys, inexpensive replay controller. The other person to ask is Robert Green, who's actually on the on this show on the back end. He does replay for the big boys with the traditional EVSs, and so he's well versed in it, and that's for broadcast. So ask him, maybe you catch him, either of those guys, in after hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, I tell you, work in a country that has cricket, because Test cricket is it's 6 to 7 hours a day of play, and then it can be a 5-day test, and so 5 consecutive days of 7 hours. And so what happens with cricket is that there's often replays are often played between each bowl, and so there's a lot that you're doing. And I think learning in real time is the key with this, is that you can't shortcut it. You can't fast track learning how to do replay, because you need to learn it in the context of real time, so that when a bowl happens in this example, you need to be able to be ready to play that back again almost the moment that it's finished. And then you also, a big thing of replay that lots of people don't understand is actually data logging is really a big part of replay, because every bowl that would happen, they'd be logging whether whatever happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And so then you're creating a highlights reel, right? So replay operators are often creating little packages along the way. It's very busy. And so particularly in cricket, it would get to the end of an over after 6 bowls. And now to be like, okay, now we've got some highlights of all the big hits. And so now it's bang, and you're playing out, this essentially a playlist. But the playlist has to be curated, and it has to, all the ins and outs need to be finely tuned and things. So long form sport is very, very good for learning about replay. Oh, you want to add some more, Guy?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to get the tour of the Thursday Night Football truck and see how the EVS is. I think they had about 20 stations. And then I was fortunate to actually sit there and watch the behind the scenes as they did the show and see how it gets bubbled up. So it's who has the best view. So there's a producer whose job is to listen to all the EVS operators. And I don't know what the system is to them saying, like, I got a 5-star shot or 4-star. There's some way they communicate out of the 20 seats who has the top 4. And then he's got to quickly look at those and then make the call to patch that into so the TD can make that selection. Because if you watch football, it's almost after every play that you're going to get 3 angles of that play. So there's 3 people who bubbled up those best shots and fed them to that. And they make mistakes every game. They make mistakes because it's the most difficult job on the entire team. From what
Really
the guys that I was saying there, because I was like, man, that director kind of got mad at that guy, and he's like, dude, it happens every show. It's like an impossible job to not make a mistake.
100%. It's live TV, David, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, if you're looking to start small or local, try to find community sports that has some sort of setup. And at $1,600, the Roland P20 HD is a hardware specific device for that role. So it's a reasonably low lift to get in. And if they don't have a replay guy, you could be that dude. Just go there with the device and learn it and do it for high school or some sort of community space sports sort of stuff.
Yeah, great way to do it. Yeah, super slow-mo is a whole nother thing as well. And so different cameras, and so those EVS operators, some specific EVSs that will do super slow-mo, and so then it's about like it ends up being like 4 times the frame rate that they can get off of it, and then it can play out. And so yeah, it's super interesting to see all of that. All right, next question, last question.
Zach Jeffers, there was a question in office hours about moving to Australia from a Western location. They asked about things to consider and prepare for. Thoughts?
From a Western location.
This
Drop
is
bears.
the West.
Drop bears.
This is the West.
From Perth.
From
Going
here.
from
West
Perth.
of where?
From Perth.
It's funny because Perth is Western from me. So the interesting thing about well, Australia, I was thinking about Western Australia when I read it, even though that's not what it's talking about. But Perth is the most isolated city in the world, right? Because it's 1 million people. And if you look at it on the map, there's only water one way, and there's just land, just desert the other way, and then 1 million people. And so it's a pretty crazy place. But yes, if you're coming to Australia, people think that you're going to get eaten by all sorts of animals, but that's not so the case. You just need to buy a good saddle for a kangaroo, and then you're fine, and you get around.
And the
There's no
Starlink,
problems
right?
and a Starlink. Yeah. Australia's pretty good. I mean, when we go on a travel around the world and things, and I lived in LA for 3 years, and there were some nice beaches there. But then I came home and I was like, oh, we've got some pretty good beaches here, which is why all of Australians live on the coast basically, and there's just a red sand in the middle. But it's worth going to see that as well. But it's worth coming to here, checking it out. I wonder who it was. They can contact me. I'll give them some tips. All right. Speaking of tips, content recommendations. We get to the end here. Guy, what's yours?
Yeah, there was a really cool episode of how they mixed Saturday Night Live for 40 years. Same guy had the job, and a couple takeaways I got out of this one was he uses this foot pedal down here to control the audience mics. So he because his hands are on the faders, he's got that foot pedal down there.
Cool.
And then the other thing is that he did on one of the faders, he did a reverse of the boom on another one. So in case the person crosses over to the other side, he's not getting confused. He's just moved his finger over to the other side so he can keep track of who's on the left, who's on the right. And he also had like 40 channels of wireless for the bigger episodes. What else was in there? The rehearsals with all the different mappings of. It was just amazing to see all the paperwork that goes in there. But it was his last day. I mean, what a run! I mean, 40 years. It's really worth watching. It's a 20-minute long piece, but man, I got a lot out of it. But maybe I'm just an audio nerd, but it's my content pick.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. That's awesome. I only saw a little clip of that, like a little short, and so I didn't realize it was a much longer one. But yeah, the pedal was a super cool idea. I really liked that. You just can't jump on top of it all the time, and you can't leave the audience mics up the whole time either. So yeah, Muddy, what have you got?
I watched that episode. That was fantastic, and it's funny because he talks about being in other studios and reaching for the foot pedal. Like, where's the foot pedal? Like, just 40 years of muscle memory, and yeah, there was a lot of really cool stuff. And actually, that channel, I have now seen all kinds of I didn't actually watch it yet, but I just saw on my feed there's one about mixing a, Major League Baseball game, right? So it's really these cool behind the scenes views. But anyway, I have an unusual.
So what is the channel? What is the channel?
Guy had
What's
it
the
up a
channel,
minute.
Guy? Did you put it in the chat?
Yeah, it's
Or
coming in
will
chat
you?
right now. The channel's called Dallas Taylor, and here's the link
Coming in
inside the
hot.
chat.
All right, cool. Muddy.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those. In fact, I don't know if it's the same guy, but the first one like that I saw was mixing Hamilton, the theater show. I learned so much about that. Anyway, a whole new respect for front of house audio engineers. So I've got an unusual pick for you. This was for Father's Day. My girls bought me this fun book called The Book of Unusual Knowledge. And I will share one tidbit with you, which is the world's largest collection of the world's smallest versions of the world's largest items. So what this is a woman who drives around in a van to all of the world's largest things, the world's largest bookcase, the world's largest ball of twine, and then she creates miniature versions of them. And that's what her van is, like this little museum van. She drives around with the world's largest collection of the smallest versions of the world's largest things. That's the kind of stuff you can expect from a beauty like this, the Book of Unusual Knowledge. So that's my pick tonight.
Brilliant. That's great. That's awesome. Very good. All right. Jeffrey.
Well, since Guy took what I was going to first say, and then Muddy took the second thing that I was going to say, then I'll have to do something different here. So,
something else.
Basically, I want to show you something on the YouTube side. It's something that I'm very excited. It was in beta. I was talking about it a couple weeks ago on Office Hours, and it is something that's going to change YouTube, and that's the collaborations tool. And it rolled out, and I didn't even know that it rolled out. That's how quick that they did that. And I'm going to show it to you really quick here. So I'm going to use my YouTube channel. If you go into any of your posts or anything like that, you'll scroll down to the video details. You might see this thing that says invite a collaborator, and it gives you the ability to bring in somebody else. If I click on this, it brings up a page. It says, who do you want to add? We'll just go Office Hours Global, and then it creates this link for Office Hours Global. The video, this video would then show up on Office Hours Globals, and then you start to share the analytics. You start to share everything with that. And I won't click on it, of course, but the whole idea is that you can now do collaborations right into YouTube at real time. So you and I, Grant, could have a talk show, and then the live show would actually be shown up on both of our YouTube channels. And
That's really cool.
The idea is to add more of the audience to whatever you're doing.
That's really cool. So does that just means we just need to get Mark S. Brownlee on extra hours?
Yeah.
And then we'll have streaming on his channel with just
Good
a
luck with
couple
that.
of people. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. That's a good one though. Very nice. So now you're thinking about who you can collaborate with. Very good.
Grant, it's really
Tucker.
funny you mentioned Marquez Brownlee, because I saw tonight a collaboration between his two channels, MKBHD and the studio, which is kind of there behind. And somehow it was a course. It's like the MKBHD method. And it's like, when I pulled it up, it's like this course contains 2 modules or something. I still don't actually understand what I'm looking at, but it's a YouTube video that also appears to be both a collaboration and somehow a course. So anyway,
Of course. Very
more to
interesting.
come.
Yeah. Just go easy on your recommendations there, Muddy. You already did your book. And you jumped in on Guys. So you only get one, all right? We've got to get David to bed.
Learn that from Alex. Get 3 in there.
This is a fade out. Tucker, what have you got?
So the algorithm got me really good the other day, and it introduced me to Ben Jordan, BENN Jordan, on YouTube. And the first video of his that I saw was birds can store data. I saved a PNG to a bird, and it took me down the rabbit hole in so many ways. But he's a true true nerd goes incredibly deep on things, and it when you should watch it, but basically he went and found birds that are mimicking, like pick up a file or pick up a sound, and he transmitted the data to the bird as audio, and then the bird sang back that at a later time, and he showed it's nuts. It's absolutely crazy.
That's super cool.
He also has an interesting thing on AI music malware, where he encodes his music, because he's a electronic musician. He encodes his music with this specific thing that makes it so that anyone that's trying to take that and learn from it so they can produce music that's similar, any AI that wants to produce music similar to that, it poisons that process, and it's nuts. Anyways, Ben Jordan.
Wow.
I
mean, what a cool, not even like a clickbait title, but what an awesome title. I saved a PNG image to a bird. That's so good.
It's
wow.
crazy.
I mean, talk about low bandwidth. That is very, very slow. There's long latency in the transfer, but but it's successful.
It's wild.
All right.
And
We've
almost
kept,
takes the
we've
place
kept him
of
up long enough.
it takes the place of email too, because that bird's going to migrate with that PNG.
Right.
And similarly, though, in my neighborhood, there used to be this mockingbird. I think it was a mockingbird that would be up on my roof, and it took me a while to figure out, but it was actually doing the car alarm song. It was like,
Yeah, right.
and it would do that constantly. It was nuts. My pick is a little more old school, something I stumbled across recently. When working from home for us, I still have a few more months where I can work a few days from home, and there's nobody here. So in the background, I put on Mendit Mark. Mendit Mark is this, I think he's from Yorkshire, and he repairs old electronics, and he's just got it's just him, his scopes, just going through stuff, toning it out. It's really cool, good background AMSR kind of stuff. Mendit Mark on YouTube.
Good one. It's just what we need. More channels to subscribe to. That's a good one. I have seen a few of these. I love the restoration ones. We talked about the cars and things, and I do enjoy
The other
those.
one like him
All right.
is Techmoan, but that guy's from Liverpool. Mendit Mark's Yorkshire accent is really soothing.
Nice. Very good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you each to the panel for joining us. It was good. It's good. We were pushing the system a little bit. We had 4 last week. We did 6 this week, and so 6 is good. And of course, I don't think that Mimo Live was breaking a sweat. Didn't hear the fans spin up in the Mac studio.
Nah, it looks
Loving it.
I'm watching the little stats, the iStats menu. It looks
Yeah.
pretty good. Maybe halfway.
Pretty reasonable.
Yeah,
Mhm.
60% maybe.
Oh, the Alex Lindsay limit. So we'll see. We want to try larger at some point, but all of our graphics and things are set for 6, so we'll keep at that for a little while and see how we go. Have we gone to 4K yet, Guy? Like, I know that we're streaming out to 4K.
I think that
but the
we're streaming
project is
4K, but
not.
I think the document, I don't know, Alexander, can you go over to the document? It's source? Let's see if he's listening.
We're still testing
He's not
it.
doing
This
it.
is
He's not doing it.
Native 4K in the panel chat.
Oh, wow. All right. Well,
Oh.
we'll see.
Well, there you
how
go.
it looks.
Nice. That looks great. All right. Thank you. Thanks to each in the chat for playing along at home. It was good. And if you had some more questions, then jump into the morning show, 7 a.m. tomorrow. I want to thank. I normally get prompted with who was working in the back end, but I know there was Alexander Knight and Alan, and I heard Robert in there as well. And I know that
Peter.
there we go, Peter. Thank you. There we go. It's awesome that they keep playing around and playing with Mimo Live to see what's possible. And of course, Tucker, we might hit you up sometime and play around with cover night code as well. It would be really cool to do this show, and that'd be fun.
Yeah, let me know when.
You'd be
I've
up
got
for
systems
that.
ready.
Yeah, awesome. Sweet. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.